Hi guys, so for this lesson, we are going to be working with smart objects and talking about layers and gradients. So what you're going to need for this assignment is a bottle that I have provided for you. And I'm going to kind of walk you through it and kind of show you how the layers are broken down and what the bottle is used for. You're also going to need 3 more images that you can choose what you want to use. We're going to be creating the labels on the spray bottle. So anything that you would think you would use a spray bottle for, I'm going to use it kind of like a Febreze type of bottle. So, so it'll spray different scents. I've asked some of my students for some random ideas on doing this. And so they've given me some kind of funny ideas to do. So you can use either my images or you can come up with your own. And again, you can choose any kind of images that you want. Use that helpful site in Canvas so that you can get the websites that you need to get these images from. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start. If you need to pause and find what you need and then come back, feel free to do so. So the first image you're going to pull up is going to be this bottle that I'm giving you, and I'm going to minimize that right there. There we go. So we can see this bottle. At one of my previous jobs, my job was to photograph all their containers and then turn them into what's called a clipped image. So you can see there's no background behind this. So then they could just take this image and be able to place it into other images and be able to create like advertisements and things of that nature, marketing pieces. And so on this, you can see that I have the bottle, and over here in my layers, remember that with layers are basically like having clear pieces of plastic on top of one another until you put something on them. So if I was to close everything, I've got nothing. And then if I open just the bottle, you'll see that the bottle is all that's on that one layer. And whenever you're using this program, you can actually break it down even further, and you can go into groups in your layers. And then underneath those groups, you can have multiple layers within there. So for this one, I have my bottles down here and I can close them. I even had to go so far as photographing a black bottle and a white bottle. Okay, so this one has a lot of layers in it. Normally, when you're working on a project, you're not going to have a whole bunch of groups unless you're working on a much larger project. This was created so that I could show both the black bottle and the white bottle and all the different lid colors. We're using this because when we're working with smart objects, it's just going to make it a little bit easier for us. Okay, so I'm going to go up here to the next one. This is my red sprayer. And you can see if you click down arrow next to it, you're going to see that I had to do a little bit work on it, mess around with some of the like highlights and shadows on it. Okay. The next one up is the orange sprayer. And again, if I click the little eye next to it, you're going to see that it opens it up so we can see it. And then this particular bottle also had a yellow lid. And you'll be able to choose what lid you want so that you can actually see the differences. Okay, so I want you to make sure you have your eye open next to your bottle. So the way layers work is we can add more layers and we can add blank layers, or you can copy things in. So we're going to actually be adding some images into this, but first we're going to create a label. So what I want you to do is we're going to come over here and grab the selection tool right here. And I simply want you to draw kind of a squarey, rectangular shape on here. Okay, this is what's going to be our label, and we're going to manipulate it to make it look like it's actually fitting on the bottle, as well as put some different designs on it. Then I want you to come down, I want you to click on this top yellow layer sprayer. If you just click on the outside of it, that's how you know the layer is selected. So it's gray, it's still closed because we're not really worried about that layer. We just want to be at the top. And then the square inside with the plus sign inside of it, we're going to click that. It's going to open us a new layer. Now, over here on our toolbar, we want to make sure that our foreground color is white and our background color is black. If they're not already, the easiest way to do this is see these two little bitty squares right here, the there's a black and a white one. If you just click on that and then click on the arrow, it's going to first make it black and white, and then the arrow is going to flip them. We then now need to fill this. And what I'm going to do is come over to my toolbar, and I'm actually going to move this bar. If it's in your way, you can move yours as well. You can do some of this on here, but I want to show you the harder way in case your bar doesn't pop up or in case you close it. So over here on our toolbar, if we go down 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 tools, you may see the gradient tool. You may see the paint bucket. We're wanting the paint bucket. And you're going to just drop white paint inside that bucket. I'm sorry, inside that selection with the bucket. And then Command D or Control D will deselect it. Now you can see that we have this nice white label on here, but we want to be able to put multiple different options on it, which is one of the reasons that smart objects come in really handy. Smart objects allow us to kind of group something together, and it's non-destructive, so you can then go in and make adjustments to it. You can also turn something into what's called a smart object and then be able to add filters to that overall object. So you could have 6 layers in there, and that filter would affect all of them equally. And so it would make an overall look that you're looking for. Okay, we're doing it so that we can give multiple options that we want our label to look like, but we're also doing it so that we can warp this label and add a gradient over it to give it that appearance that it's dimensional. Okay, so what we're going to do is over here on our layer 2, you're going to right click and you're going to change it to convert to smart objects in the pop-up right here, convert to smart object. Now, whenever you have a smart object, you're going to see that there's a little piece of paper with a little square on it. That's what it's standing for, is smart object. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to do some manipulation to this before we go in so I can actually kind of show you what it does. So you can kind of have a visual of it, okay? So I'm going to come up here, I'm going to grab my move tool. And I'm going to come up to edit, transform, and warp. So that was edit, transform, and warp. And it's going to give us this little bounding box around it, okay? So whenever you're talking about the shape of a bottle, even a bottle like this, it has some curve to it. It's not completely flat. So we want to make it so that the label looks like it's curved a little bit. And so I'm going to click on right here up on this blue line, and I'm just going to pull it up just a little bit, just to give it a little bit of curve. I'm going to do the same thing right here. I'm going to pull it up a little bit. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to pull it down a little bit on this bottom blue. And then this one right here, I'm going to pull it down just a smidge, and you can see it's kind of adjusting both of those in the middle. Okay, so you could do it, and you can see that, you know, the bottle kind of curves this way. So if you wanted to, you know, pull it a little bit, because think about how these things fit whenever you're looking at any kind of bottle in front of you or any kind of cup or anything like that that has this, has an attachment on it, how it's going to distort the shape. Not looking for perfection in the distortion, just so that it gives it a little bit of shape. I'm going to go ahead and click up here on the, whoops. There's a check mark right up here underneath my bar. I'm just going to click in the background over here, and it set it. So now you can see it. Now, what this is going to do is when we go into the smart object, we're still going to have a flat square, and we'll put in our design into that flat square. And then when we come out of the smart object, it's going to read that curved shape that we gave it. Okay, so that's the reason we're doing this. So you're going to come over here to your thumbnail right here, and you're going to double click on it. And it's going to open up a whole brand new tab called Layer 2 PSB. And then the first scent that the guys gave me was this bourbon whiskey barrel. So the smell of kind of not only the bourbon and the whiskey, but the smell of the wood as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select this and I'm going to move this into this PSB. So I'm going to do Control A, which is, or Command A, which is select all. And then I'm going to come over to layer 2 and I'm going to either Command V or Control V, depending on what type of computer I'm on. And I did not hit that right the first time, so I want to make sure. And it's going to tell me there's something wrong with the color profile. That's fine. I'm going to hit OK. And it's going to be gigantic. So now I'm going to Command T or Control T. And I'm going to size this down. Now I'm going to make it so that only half of the barrel shows. Actually, I'm going to do mine from the bottom and I'm going to give it a little bit of a twist because I only want the bourbon whiskey part to show down here, just so that I don't have to type that extra into my text. There we go. And we're going to create a mask. So I have to use one of my selection tools. I'm going to use my quick selection tool and try it. And I'm going to select out just the barrel. And remember, if you over select, it's Alt to get rid of anything. And if you under select and you want to select more, it's Shift. I'm sorry, unless you're on a Mac. And then it's Option to add to it. Option or Alt to get rid of stuff. Shift to add to it. Okay, so I'm going to go up around here. I'm just going to clean it up a little bit. So go ahead and make your selection clean. Again, if you need to pause, feel free, pause. I'm going to get my shape the way I want it. And then on the bottom of your layers panel, you're going to see the square with the circle in it. This is your mask tool, and you're just going to click it. And now there's my bottle. And if I wanted to, I could go back with the black and white paintbrush and clean up anything I don't like. Okay. So just make it nice and clean around the edges. And then I'm going to grab my text tool. And I'm going to hit the, I'm just going to click once. You don't click and drag because that'll create a box, a text box, which we'll talk about more when we're in Illustrator and InDesign. But for this, it's just click once and you get this nice little line. And I'm going to type in Febreze. I'm just going to rip them off for this assignment for right now. And I'm going to go ahead and select it. Flip my colors over here. You can, oops, and I spelled it wrong. Febreze. There we go. No R. Okay. And you can do it however you want. You can name it something that you've come up with yourself. And I'm going to move this over here towards the middle. And then I'm going to kind of play with the text. We're not going to go super deep into the text for this lesson, just to kind of get an idea. So once I have it selected, make sure I'm on that layer over here, and I can come over here in my character panel, or you can come up to Window and Character and pop up your character panel like this. And then we're just going to make it bigger. I'm going to go up to, I'll go up to 300. Nope, 300 is way too big. Let's go down to 150, still too big. We'll go down to 72. 72 will work. I'm going to kind of center this, and you can see your guidelines are kind of showing you where center is. If you want to change the color, we can change the color. Just double click right here, or you can double click down here on this box and change the color to whatever you want it to be. I'm going to go a little bit more like whiskey bourbon-y kind of color, kind of a golden-y kind of color. Okay, so we now have 3 layers over here. We have a white background. We have our first image, and then we have some text. You're going to come back up here now to where it says Layer 2 PSB. And you're going to click the little X next to it, and it's going to say, do you want to save it? And you're like, yes. And if we go back to that working file, you'll see it now lays it onto the bottle for us. Okay. And so we could have this one and we could have, a red cap on it. And then we could do the next one and do a different cap color if you want. So what this kind of helps with too is whenever for my old job, we used to do dog food and dog treats, and they would be using the exact same bag for the beef, the chicken, and the lamb. And what they would do was we would just go in here and change out the label of the bag or the bag itself on like the design of the bag. And then they could just change out the colors of them. Or for something like this, we would make spray that you would spray on like pet accidents. And so we would have one that was made specially for dog urine and one that was made specially for cat urine. And then we were able to change out the lid color so that dogs were always one color and cats were always one color. Okay, so that's one thing you can do. Now we're going to go back into that smart object. So it's right over here. You can see it still has that little piece of paper on it. I'm going to double click it. Now we already have these in here, but what if we wanted to do one based off, I wanted to do a smell based off tennis balls. Okay. I want the label to lay the same way. I want the text to technically be the same way. I just want to change out the image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this one and do either Command A or Control A again. Select it all. Command or Control C to copy it. And I'm going to go back to this PSB file and I'm going to Command or Control V. And there's my image. And I'm going to pull it right down here so that it's right here. And I'm going to close the eye next to my barrel. Now I'm going to simply Control or Command T, and then I can resize my tennis balls. And for this one, I think I want to put it over to the side and kind of make them even bigger. Just to give it slightly a different feel. Now, something I want you to notice too, now this image, since I blew it up, you can tell it has some pixelation to it, but whenever you're doing any of the transformation stuff, so making it larger, making it smaller, a lot of times when you have this bounding box around it, this blue bounding box, it'll look really out of focus until you either hit enter or you hit that check mark at the top, and then it'll clear that up a little bit. Now, being on this layer, what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to use my quick selection tool, and I'm just going to do it the opposite way this time. So I'm going to select the white area over here and on this side of the balls so I can mask them out, but I'm just going to do it backwards, and I'm going to show you how to make it work backwards. So I have it all selected out, but I want the mask to actually fall so that I see the ball. So what I have to do is come up here and do select and inverse and mask. Now, if you didn't do it backwards, you're completely fine. All you would do is select out. If we wanted to just select out these balls, we could have done that. And then I could have hit the mask tool over here and it would have worked the same way. But I want to mimic the same feel. So I want to leave this Febreze here, but I want to change the color of it. But I don't want to completely get rid of it in this case because I may want to come back to this other label at some point. So I'm going to click on the Febreze layer. I'm going to drag it down here to the plus sign. It's going to make a copy of it, and I'll drag that one to the top. And I'll close the eye next to here. Now, while I'm on this one, I can change the color of it again. This time, maybe I'll go really, really bright green. Or let's go darker green. There we go. Right about there. Hit OK. Then again, we should only have the 3 layers open. We'll have a total of 5, but we're closing the eyes on these 2. Once you've done that, you can come up here to the top to layer 2 PSB and close it. Do you want to save it? Yes. And I go back to my working file And there's my bottle. And now you can kind of see how we curved this edge. You can kind of see that the balls are kind of curved along with it. Okay. So now if we decided like we're working on this and we're like, oh, we like it, but at the same time, I want to go back to that whiskey barrel. All I would have to do is double click the smart object again, close these two, open the original two, save it again, and I'm right back to where I was. Okay. So what I want you to do is do one more on your own. So I'm going to double click on my smart object and I want you to do your third. Okay, once you get it to where you like it, then you're going to click, you're going to go ahead and close that and save it again. Okay, and now we have a plastic seat. So we have a tennis ball scent, we have a plastic seat scent, and we have a whiskey barrel scent. And they're all in the same smart object. So we can come over to our layers and we can, as you notice, this one's called layer one, this one's called layer two, but then these are all named. We can name these layers as well. So I'm going to double click on the words layer two and change it to scent. That way I just know because you can see right here in the smart object, I can't really see a whole lot of what it is because the object is being covered. So now I can change it. Okay, so that's kind of how smart objects work. We can also, if you decided that this wasn't curved as much as you wanted or curved too much, you could, with it selected, go back up to edit and transform and warp and then be able to make adjustments back to it again if you thought it was curved a little too much or you wanted to change it out. Feel free to do that. This is your assignment, so make it look the way you want it to make it to look the best. And then I'll hit my check mark again, so now it's set. Okay, next what I want to do is I want to create I want to use my adjustments layer. So I wanted to show you kind of what the adjustment layers do. So down here at the bottom, you have this little half black, half white circle. You're going to click on it. It's going to give you a pop-up. And these are all adjustments you can use. So this works really well if you wanted to change the color. Maybe you want to change the color of the bottle. Okay, so we could go down here and let's do, we'll do color, we'll do hue saturation. Nope, I take that back. We're going to do solid color right up here at the top. Okay, and go ahead and pick whatever color you want your bottle to be instead of white. And we're going to drag this down and we're going to put it right here on top of the bottle layer because I don't want my label to change. I only want my bottle to change. And now I can take this layer and right here is your opacity. And so I can take that opacity and I can lower that down and see it's going to make my bottle a lighter shade. This is not the only way to change a bottle or change a fill color over an object. This is just kind of a fast way of doing it. Okay. And so I just want to give my bottle a little bit of a tint. I could just play with it like this. Now, how can I make it so that my background's not being affected as well? I can create what's called a clipping layer. And you're going to hold Option or Alt, and you're going to go in between those two layers to that line in between them. And you'll see that my cursor looks like a finger. And as I go down, it's going to clip it. And now it's only affecting my bottle. Okay. So you can change yours. You can also go back later if you want it and you're like, oh, I really don't like this blue. I can double click on it. And I could change it to another color. So maybe I want it to be green because the seats are green, or I want it to be a dark blue because the text is blue. So you can go back and change the colors at any time simply by double clicking on this adjustment layer. Now, if I go down here and I click on this circle again to get my adjustment layers, let's kind of walk through what some of these are. So solid color is going to add a solid color to it. Gradient is going to allow you to add a gradient. So from like dark to light or from pink to green, or we'll look at gradients in just a minute so that you understand them a little bit more, but you can do it as an adjustment layer. You can add a pattern over it. You can do brightness and contrast. With brightness and contrast, it's going to do those two things. It's going to give you the option of having a bright, adjusting where the bright is, but it'll also adjust like your darks versus your lights. With levels, this will allow you, and I'll pull this one up because this one's very, very helpful. And I'm going to turn off this blue for a second just so you can see what I'm doing. If you look at this bottle with levels, you can actually push the blacks darker by pulling from the left. You can push your whites whiter by pulling from the right. And you can also make some adjustments to those grays right there in the middle if you wanted to. Okay, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to just kind of bring it down here and dump it. We have curves that does the same kind of thing as levels, but it does it on more of a grid scale. So some people like one better than the other. You're just going to have to use them and see which one you prefer. And then exposure is just like when you're taking a photograph. If you want the overall feeling to be darker or lighter, you would go into exposure. Vibrance, adjust, just like it says, the vibrance of the image. You have hue saturation, and this one, I clicked on it. You can see it up here. You can actually change the hue of something. I don't have, let's see, let me pull it above like the red sprayer. So I had it as a red sprayer, and then I can play with this hue saturation and I could change the color of the sprayer to any color I want. So maybe we want, again, we want the sprayer to match the text. We could go over here to blue. You can also mess with the saturation. That's going to feel like you have a whole lot of that color in there, or you can desaturate it so it goes back down to like a grayscale. Then you have the lightness and darkness of it. Okay, so that's all under hue saturation. We then have color balance. With color balance, this allows you to make adjustments that you want to go more, you want to pull out more of the red. You want to put more red into it. This one is really good if you've taken a picture and it has like a really yellow feel to it. You can pull out some of the yellow Right down here, it's basically adding a blue filter over it. Since mine is a pure white, you can just see that it's adding those colors instead of taking them away. So it's just more of a filter. I'll dump the color balance one. We have black and white. If you choose that one, it turns everything black and white that's underneath it. So remember that you're adjusting everything that's underneath that layer. You have photo filters. This has different color filters in it. There's, if you've ever seen sepia photos where the photos look kind of brownish, there's a sepia photo, filter in there. There's also like a yellow filter and an orange filter and a blue filter. Channel mixer, this adjusts the actual channels. So right up here, you'll see that there's channels right here. What this channel mixer does is it allows you to work in the main color channel. So RGB, because that's what we're working in. We're in RGB assignment. If you're working in a CMYK color assignment, then this would be CMYK and would allow you to make adjustments to those channels. And you have color lookup. This will allow you to pick very specific colors using profiles. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this black and white one too, so that we don't get any more confused. And then you have invert, you have posterize. So invert's going to make it go to the opposites. Opposite of blue is yellow, opposite of white is black. Polarize, it gives it this kind of like, for lack of a better term, almost like a cut paper kind of feel to it. So if you were to cut something out of paper, it kind of gives it that like edgy, like chunky feel. Threshold pushes the things to their thresholds. You can see it right up here and you can make adjustments to it. Again, it kind of gives it that cut paper feel. You have a gradient map. It allows you to work with different types of gradients. And then you also have selective color where you can pick very specific colors out of the image that you want to use and work with, okay? So again, you can play with any of these and add them. Just remember that they're going to affect everything that's below it. So right now I have this hue saturation, so it's affecting the red sprayer and the bottle. If I only wanted to select, I only want them to affect one layer, like I only want the hue saturation to affect the sprayer, then all I would have to do is press Option or Alt, depending on what type of computer I'm on, and I'm going to click right in between them. And then it's going to affect only that one. And to take it off of there, I do the same thing. Okay. So now we've taken a look at the adjustment layers. The last thing for us kind of to play with would be the gradient. And again, if you're not happy with the way it looks up till now, let's go through gradients, kind of walk through, and then you're more than welcome to play with this as much as you want. If you have a little bit more experience, feel free to kind of go with it. But what we're going to do is we're going to add a gradient to this. What gradients are great for is to create shadows and highlights. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to the top one, up to the scent one. I'm going to click it again because when I create a new layer, I want to be able to create it on the very top. And what we're going to do is we're going to lay a shadow over this label because right now it's very, very white. It's very flat. It doesn't feel like it goes quite with the bottle. And if I turn off my label, you'll see if you look very closely, you'll see it kind of goes from darker on the left. It gets pretty bright in the middle and goes darker again on the right. You'll also see that it kind of comes all the way down through the center. Now, this part of the bottle did stick out more, so it's a little bit more shadowed. We're only going to focus on this one. So we're going to go kind of from dark to light to dark. So I'm going to turn that label back on. Okay. So now I'm going to come over here and I want to press the plus with inside the square to create a new layer. So now this is called layer 2. And if you want to double click on that, we can name it gradient. Okay. And I'm going to come back over to my toolbar where I got my paint bucket and I'm going to grab my gradient tool. Now, gradients work really well in Photoshop. They work even better in like Illustrator. They work basically the same way. You just have a little bit more control over it in Illustrator. So it's a great thing to kind of learn and play with. Now, we want our color to be black on white. Okay, we want our color to be black on white down here. Remember, if you don't have it like that, you can just click right here on this little square, black to white. You want to make sure up here it goes from white to black. And then we're going to work with this one. So let me explain to you the different type of gradients you can use. The first one is going to be from side to side. It's a linear. So it'll go from white to black. Or if you wanted to do different gradients, you can do this little drop down here, and you can see there's all different types of gradients in here. So like here's one that goes from green to blue, or let's see, we'll click on purples and you have teal to pink, or, you know, red to purple. So you can make up whatever colors you want. Whenever you're doing this, your foreground color and your background color over here are the two that it's going to go between. The next one we have over is the radial. That's going to give you that circular look. So if you're looking for like the bright light highlight on something, so it's like a bright circle and then it kind of fades out, that would be the one that you're using here. This one I believe is called a diamond. Let's see if I can get it to pull up. It's going to, instead of having the round linear or the round radial, you'll have, no, what's it called? Angle gradient now. The angle gradient is going to give it more of a point. Then we have a reflected gradient, which is the one we're going to be using. Oh, I had them backwards. And here's the diamond one. So we're going to be using the this one right here that's reflected. And we want to make sure that we've clicked reverse, that there's a little check mark right there, because we want it to go from black to white to black. Okay. Now what you're going to do is you're simply going to click your little tool right here in the middle and drag it slightly, and you're going to pull it out. Now you don't have to have this perfect yet because we're going to play with it. So just kind of pull it out a little ways. And the way this works is this middle circle right here will allow you to move it left and right. This one allows you to expand it. And this little diamond that's floating above here is going to allow, is going to allow you to push and pull how fast the gradient changes. Now, let's say you were working and you decided that you didn't want white to be in your center. You can simply double click on it and be able to change the color. We are creating a highlight, so we want to leave it kind of with white. So I'll hit cancel. Now, over on my layers panel, you'll see where it says normal right here. Next to it says opacity, and I'm going to down it so I can see through it. I'm going to go down to about a 40-ish. We'll take it further when we get ready to. And what you want to do is I want to move this kind of, and I'm going to twist it a little bit, but I'm going to kind of move it over. And I want to get my shadow so that the black kind of falls only on the edge. Now, here's the problem with this. Again, it's affecting my entire bottle. I only want it to affect the label itself. So I'm going to press and hold either Option or Alt. And I'm going to click in between. See, my cursor goes from finger on the layers. And if I go down, it changes into an arrow with a square. And I'm going to click on it. And now I can kind of see how it's affecting that label. And you can still see it's kind of a little bright or a little dark on the edges still. So I'm just going to pull it over a little bit more. I just wanted to like barely fade on there. And I can also play with my opacity and lower it down a little bit. So now that's feeling more like it's curving with the bottle. So for me, I'm going to go about 20%. There we go. And you can kind of still see the edges of the label so that you know it's on there. and you have a finished label. Now for what you turn into me, I would like you to turn in 2 files to me for this. So the first one is going to be this Photoshop file, and you can open up whichever the labels you like the best. The reason we're going to turn it in as a Photoshop file is so I can go into your scent layer, your smart object, and see that you did a couple different ones. Whoops, right there. I can go in there and I can be able to take a look at your other layers and just see what you did. And then we're also going to save it as a JPEG so that whenever it pops up. So pick whichever of the smart objects that you like the best. I personally liked this one kind of the best. So I'm going to close it and hit yes. And there it is. And I'm going to change my sprayer to the yellow. I feel it like ties in a little bit better, or maybe the orange. Let's do the orange. There we go. I think the orange one works best. I'm going to come up here to File, Export, Export As. Okay, so you've already went to File, Save As, and you made sure this was a PSD file. You name the file, Photoshop, hit Save. You save that one. You're going to turn that one in, and then you're going to do File, Export, Export As. Make sure this reads as JPEG right here for the format. For quality, we're going to go ahead and take it up to high. It's just a habit to get into because when you turn in your bigger projects, I'm going to want it to be high quality. And then you hit export. And it's going to give you the same thing. You can name it. See, it says JPEG, tell it where to name it, and hit save again. And then that one will actually export it as a JPEG. Okay, and you will turn both of those in for the in-class assignment. If you have any questions, please give me an email and let me know what's going on so I can help you fix it.